Alright guys, and welcome to the 53rd episode of Below the Bar.
In this episode, expect to find out what we think of Gareth Southgate's team selection at the Euros, why Eddie's trip to Bucharest ended in disaster,
And how to deal with a crying toddler in a public place.
Let's get into it. Hello and welcome back to the pod. So we're going to do a little bit of a catch-up again, as a little bit has happened since we last spoke, specifically on Ed's side of life. And then we're going to run through the segments as well. We also have some new segments for you today. So look forward to them at the end of the ep. But the first thing we're going to do is go for an old classic, an old faithful, just checking I'm still recording, helmet of the week.
Yeah, well, the thing is, like, I think we were floundering a bit with reasons to be cheerful and underrated, overrated. But, you know, for better or for worse, because there are so many helmets out there,
Particularly this week.
We never fail to come up with a helmet of the week, do we?
Yeah, this week's pretty easy.
And it is relevant.
Helmet of the week.
This week's helmet of the week is, of course, our Lord and Saviour, Gareth Southgate.
If you're not following the Euros, first of all, I don't know what you're doing, but yeah, that's the only thing that's on at the moment.
Yeah.
But, England have now played 2 of our 3 group games, and for want of a better word, have been shit.
Yeah, we stunk. Well, what's happened is if England is a lift, Gareth Southgate's firmly in the centre of that lift, dropping stinking wet farts, and he's making the entire population just fucking sniff them up. And the more we moan and complain about he's part of the bus football, the more he's getting in his nostrils. He's loving it.
I've always defended Mr. Gareth Southgate. I thought it was a good injection into the England setup. I thought it was quite kind of good at galvanising the team and making sure they kind of work together and all this sort of stuff. But this tournament has just been unforgivable so far. And to be fair, when this goes out, it'll be tomorrow when the next game is. So we won't know if he's rectified himself yet. But after 2 performances so far, he's fucking horrendous.
Well, the worrying thing is that the performances have got worse.
Yeah.
So normally a team would be expected to start slowly and then go through the gears in the tournament. We've actually gone down the gears so far.
We've downshifted.
I know there's a lot of people on the internet at the minute moaning about Gareth Southgate, so I don't just want to add to that noise. I want to add some nuance to it.
Fresh perspective.
I think at the time, obviously Gareth Southgate was hired on the back of us getting knocked out of Euro 2016 to Iceland, and he was what was needed.
To calm the ship.
He steadied the ship, he brought people together, he brought the feel-good factor to the England camp. But I think after kind of like, 3 tournaments, it was World Cup 2018, Euro 2020, which was actually in 2021.
And then 2020.
And then Qatar 2022. Yeah. I think those 3 tournaments, he took England as far as he could, kind of like tactically as a manager. Because the same mistakes kept happening and we weren't really kind of like rectifying them, were we?
Learning from them, yeah. So the Italy game is a massive example of that.
Yeah, so you're at Wembley and you go 1-0 up in 2 minutes against a very average Italian side, and then you immediately drop off for the entire game.
88 minutes spent just fucking...
Yeah, you spend 88 minutes just inviting Italian pressure, and lo and behold...
They nick one.
They nick one. And that Italian team basically went through the entire tournament not scoring goals. You remember, I think they had like multiple penalty shootouts because it went to the wire because they couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. So, knowing that, we score early on, and instead of basically continuing to do what we were doing, Gareth Southgate's like, now we'll stink the gaff out now and literally just give them as much time and possession as they want to get the ball in the net.
Didn't he also make the substitution of like Rashford and that on, bringing the kids on to take the penalty?
Yeah, that was it as well. Yeah, which was again terrible kind of like
horrendous
leadership.
They haven't been on the pitch, they haven't touched the ball. Like, literally 2 minutes before the end, he subs them on just because they can kick a football. But wasn't it Saka, Rashford,
and Sancho that missed? Yeah, and then they obviously got a load of racial abuse for it as well. Obviously, because we live in a country full of racists, which is good. But anyway, that's besides the point. That was 2 tournaments ago.
I know.
And we haven't rectified those issues yet.
Yeah.
Because now we've probably got the most gifted England team in a generation, if not even more gifted. You know, if you look at it on paper, attacking wise, anyway, you've got, you know, the best goal scorer in the German league. You've got the best football player in the Premier League. and you've got
the best player in the Spanish league.
In the Spanish league, who's just fresh off the back of winning the Champions League.
Yeah.
So it's like when three of your front four are comprised of those individuals, you'd think you'd just be knocking them in for fun.
And the fourth is Saka, who's equally quality.
Equally good, could have conceivably won like 2 Premier Leagues in the past 2 years.
If he wasn't with a bottle job side.
And you're like, right, well, that, regardless of what the defence is saying, a team with those players in is going to be knocking them in for fun. And then you watch England play, and it's like they're deliberately trying not to score.
It is almost like they're different people with an England shirt on.
It's bad, isn't it?
It's crazy, mate. When you watch them for their club, like we look at Declan Rice, and he for his club he's awesome. And the other day against Denmark, couldn't even fucking keep the ball. He was giving the ball away, never passed the ball forward.
He was didn't just pass the ball forward once. It was like watching it was like being back at Molineux in the Mick McCarthy days when I used to go and watch Wolves play, and it was like watching fucking Carl Henry in midfield. It was absolutely stinking, and it's like I get the conundrum, right, because it's like what all England managers of the past have had to kind of grapple with, really. It's like, do you play what's best for the system, or do you just try and get all your best players on the pitch?
This is always going to be the international problem.
I know.
You have, obviously by design, all of the best players in the country.
So
there's going to be a shitload of good players in the same position.
Yeah, so you play to the system, because if the system doesn't work, you don't win the game.
No. Well, as we've seen.
So this isn't fantasy football where you just try and
all the 99s in the
yeah, like if the individual players aren't serving the system, then it's not going to work out. So he's playing Trent in midfield. I love Trent Alexander-Arnold as much as the next man, but he's not a central midfielder. He can't play.
Such a different job.
He can only play with the ball in front of him. He can't take it on the turn because he's not glancing around. Like the amount of times he was dispossessed because he just didn't see someone behind him.
And in midfield where there are experienced midfielders, he'll get absolutely creamed.
Well, exactly. He's playing against, obviously still professional players, but in comparison to coming up against a
Spanish midfield,
a Spanish or a French midfield or a German midfield, you just get picked apart.
We need a proper midfield unit in that mid three that are going to be solid.
I know, I appreciate that we're not professional footballers, so it's easy for us to criticise. But you've got to look at that and think, right, well, if 2 knobheads in Dudley can unpick all the faults,
well, everyone has.
Yeah, everyone. Is that not telling that how he? And the thing is, right, he's the manager, he's in charge of this. How isn't he seeing this in the game as it unfolds?
Yeah, and the fact that a couple of the comments he made last game as well, we need to get into that.
We need to get into this. This is a separate. So if we ignore the tactical ignorance of him,
this is indicative of the tactical ignorance, though, isn't it?
So basically, he still thinks that you can win major tournaments, stinking the gaff out. The same kind of football that Jose Mourinho made popular 20 years ago.
Well, now we've got Pep, who moves fast, pressing.
People like Pep Guardiola, Jurgen Klopp have evolved football since then, and that doesn't wash anymore.
No, because teams now just see it for what it is.
Yeah.
And just try and unpick it. Also, you see the goal we conceded against Denmark was just a shot from 30 yards or whatever. The reason they could do that was because we dropped off 10 yards.
There was no pressure on the ball.
No. Anyway, the comments he made in the interviews were, number one, Trent Alexander-Arnold is an experiment we're using. It's the fucking major tournament here. We can't be affording experiments. You do that in your fucking friendlies, and you realise it doesn't work, and then you fuck it off. And then he said, we haven't got a natural replacement for Calvin Phillips. That should have been a sackable offence immediately.
Honestly, they should move VAR to kind of the post-match press conference as well.
I bet he's absolutely kicking himself for saying that now.
We just stopped that there. So what you've just said is you're still reliant on a player who, by most people's standards, has been completely irrelevant in world football for at least 2 years.
I wonder what he's thinking when he sees that. He'll have seen that on TV and think, what?
Has he just won a bet with his mate? Did he put 20 quid on? You won't say Calvin Phillips in your post-match press conference.
He's not part of the Conservative part.
Ooh, topical.
No, so the problem with that, and there's loads of problems with that, because he will be fucking kicking himself for saying that now. He'll be like, that was probably just a throwaway comment that he just thought, I'll try and do. But he was trying to obviously navigate a kind of hard question or whatever. But the message that sends to the rest of the team is horrendous. The message that sends to the fans in terms of he now doesn't know how to. He basically said, I don't know how to play with the team I've got. That's what he said.
It's threefold, right? Okay, there's 3 things wrong with that statement. Firstly, as we've said, Calvin Phillips has been completely irrelevant in world football for at least 2 years. He got his big money move to Man City. Pep Guardiola, a proper manager, took one look at him, thought, this bloke's out of shape. He's getting nowhere near my team. Basically hasn't played football since.
Yeah.
Number two, by saying that, you're then indicating to the midfielders that you have picked in your squad that they're not as good as someone who is now washed.
Yeah, and they all know he's washed.
And to make matters worse, you're playing a right back in their position over them.
Yeah, so you've got two blokes sat on the fucking bench. You have that position on lock, mate.
And have had good seasons
Have had
domestically.
really good seasons, both in good form. And then they've come to the Euros. They've been picked, probably buzzing. They've been fucking selected behind a right back. So someone who's... And you can see... They're probably watching... Because they're midfielders.
Yeah, they're like, what is this bloke doing?
This is fucking horrendous.
Yeah.
Because imagine, you know when you're kind of competent with something and you watch, just like if you watch someone deadlift and they're shit.
Yeah.
It's like, it just feels like, what the fuck? And so if you're like a subject matter expert and you see someone completely butcher your position, it's probably hard to watch at the best of times. And then you've also just now heard your manager say, oh, well, you're also not as good as this bloke who we haven't seen for 2 years.
Yeah.
They probably don't know who he is.
Yeah, and thirdfold, then the impact that then has on the fans, because it just communicates to them that he hasn't moved on since the last tournament.
He may as well have said, I don't know how to play with these players.
Yeah, he's basically said, I've done absolutely fuck all to evolve my style of play in the past 2 years.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's basically what he said.
You haven't got a natural replacement. You've got two CDMs on the bench.
We have, because there's two on the bench.
And they're both quality.
And they're both better than Calvin
If
Phillips.
he doesn't play them on the
I can't.
He'll play honestly, fucking Gallagher.
Honestly, there's so much of the nation's fucking pride and joy riding on this starting 11.
Oh mate.
Because he loved, and this is the other thing we need to get into. I've got nothing personal against Conor Gallagher, but he's indicative of the type of player that Gareth Southgate likes, which is just purely a reflection of the type of player that he was, which is basically
work in it.
All grit, mega conservative, not really got much to offer technically.
Yeah.
Effectively in it.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Because that just buys into his whole kind of footballing philosophy, which as we now know, is completely outdated.
Yeah, it's not looking good, basically, for England. But, again, like you say, a lot of this now conversation rides on our starting 11 on Tuesday.
So I'll try and clip this up on Monday and get it out there before the final group game. So hopefully it'll get some traction.
Let's do a starting 11.
Right, okay. Our starting 11 for England v Slovenia on, what is it?
This is by the way, this is difficult.
Yeah, for the final group game, right? Pickford in goal.
Yeah.
Trippier left back.
Kyle Walker right back.
Yeah, Gahey and Stones.
Back five is good.
It's pretty nailed on because we don't have any other options.
Unless they've got Shaw fit, then obviously Shaw goes in for Trippier.
So then this is where the change is coming in midfield and attack.
Do you still go same system in terms of the diamond sort of thing in the?
Yes, you do the double pivot because as we know, he's fucking obsessed with the double pivot in midfield.
In the back four.
Yeah.
Against fucking Slovenia.
so the pivot is going to be Rice, and I'd like to say Bellingham, but I have a stinky feeling he's going to drop a wet fart and play Gallagher.
Think Bellingham holding? I don't know if that's what.
I think what he might do is what I would do and what Gareth Southgate would do.
This is why I'm asking you what you would do.
Right, okay. So I'd do Rice and Bellingham holding
because Foden in the 10
with Foden in the 10 because that's where Bellingham ideally would be in the 10, but to get the best out of Phil Foden, I think you have to play him in the 10.
Bellingham can play in the holding
and
as
Bellingham's good enough to adapt because he can do box to box if necessary. And then one of our real shortcomings is that Saka's been holding a lot of width on the right, but then because Foden's been put on the left, he naturally drifts in. So to rectify that, he's now in the 10, and you put Gordon, who is a natural kind of left-footed, left-sided player, on the left wing who will hold that width. So you've immediately got more balance there because you've got two wingers. And now you've got a number 10 who can actually play in the number 10 really well. Like, basically the best number 10. And probably globally. Yeah.
Maybe. But he's
up there anyway. Past season anyway. And then finally, up top,
I'd go with Kane, I think.
This all rests on the fact whether Harry Kane decides he actually wants to fucking move or not.
Thing is, because now you've got Gordon and Saka in the channels, you can now play Kane probably. But if you have Foden and that imbalance,
doesn't work. Yeah.
Then I don't think Kane works so well.
The thing is, like Harry Kane only needs one chance per game
and he will score.
To realistically score, which is great. Like few teams in world football have that.
It's almost quite annoying actually that Kane is so good and so reliable, because if you could drop him, you could play a better team.
Because if you could justify like, oh well, he only scores like 1 in 3.
Yeah.
Then you would drop. But because his goal record is basically like 1 in every other game.
Yeah.
You have to play him, and like it's great that you've got an option like Ollie Watkins or Ivan Toney on
From
the
the
bench.
bench though.
That's great. Either way, I think you do. Like he's the captain. He might not be the most vocal, but ultimately he will get you goals. And the further into a tournament you go, the more you need players.
And you're not
like
even
that.
playing any kids there, really.
No, that's in my eyes a more balanced, well-rounded team that actually suits the system and the style of play you should be aspiring to get to.
Yeah. Alternatively, he has to drop either Foden or Bellingham.
But how can you?
And put Mainu in, which you can't really do.
But I think this is so like I could see that happening, and that is justifiable. But I think he could realistically do knowing how stinky he is. He's dropped Foden or Bellingham and play Gallagher. Yeah,
that's mental.
That is a war crime. Yeah. He should go to the Hague. He should be immediately transported to the Hague and trialled for war crimes.
Can you imagine?
If he does
that? Being Phil Foden sat on the bench watching Conor Gallagher stink your position out.
Which again, right? I've got nothing against Conor Gallagher. He's a good football player, but he's
not a Phil Foden.
He's not. Fundamentally, he's not a Phil Foden. He's not good enough to start for England.
No, not with the players we've got. And you think if you go like player by player there, that's an insane 11.
I know. And it's more well balanced than the fucking weird kind of like the team that we've been playing so far is kind of on a wonk, isn't it?
Yeah, it's right. Just it's right leaning.
It's all complete. It's right. It's completely skewed to the right, indicative of the nation at the minute politically.
Ironic. Anyway, so that's England boxed.
Yeah, that's good. We've done about 20 minutes on stinky Gareth Southgate.
You rattle through the next bit.
Yeah. Right, so your seminar.
Yes.
Another seminar's been and gone since we last.
I know. So we did condense them quite close together. The two kind of seminars that we ran, but this one again went really well. I think the kind of marching order was a little bit different in terms of the speakers and stuff we had. Wanted to cover different things. Made sure, or tried to make sure, that we had just Ben cover kind of the mindset piece, and then other sessions covering other bits, and obviously Gaz came and did the rehab thing. So I think people got a lot from it. The feedback we've had has been really good. Everyone said they enjoyed it, and actually, I don't know if you knew this, but I think about 7 or 8 of the lads met up afterwards and went out in Preston.
Preston, home of Dan Nightingale, my spiritual king.
Got a message from one of my clients going, "Oh, they all went on the smash on Sunday night."
Firstly, that's great. Secondly, that's also horrific.
Nah, I think it's quality. That's exactly what those things are about.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, at least they had the England game to occupy them whilst they were in Preston.
Yeah, I think they watched that in Bolton, then went into Preston. That's mental, innit? But I think one of the lads went uni there or something. So.
Oh, right, okay, so had connections. Yeah, I mean, that's great. That's what it's all about, really.
Well, exactly. That kind of community aspect is really cool. Yeah. And a few of them hadn't even booked hotels. They booked hotels and then stayed and then got on the piss in the night. So, fantastic.
And also, great talk by Ben Simons.
It was,
who's been on the podcast. Again, such a kind of an underappreciated voice in the fitness community, I
agree.
Because he has
actual balance.
He has so much kind of nuance and balance, which, as you know, if you listen to the podcast, we're all about.
And also doesn't fly on social media, really. So this is the thing as well. I mean, he covered the topic of mindset, which very easily can just be through the lens of just fucking work harder, do more, you know.
So there's a tendency at the minute for anything related to that topic to go down the road of basically kind of
red pill, whatever it is.
Yeah, like hustle culture, kind of like grind culture, whatever you want to call it, where it's just like do more, work harder, and you'll get to the top, which is all well and good and sounds great on a Gucci reel that's kind of like undercut by like Lose Yourself by Eminem. But ultimately, if you unpack it, is bollocks.
Because it doesn't really work in the real world.
Because it's far more beneficial to work smarter.
And Ben brought that perspective, and obviously as someone who's been at the top of his game, bringing a kind of almost a bit more of a balanced view is kind of what we need. So it was good to have that, especially in the military prep sphere, where a lot of the stuff pushed is very much down that road. working harder, doing more, just shutting your brain, doing whatever. So he brought a very nuanced perspective, which I think was kind of refreshing, which was good.
Really
and
good.
And then their workout actually smashed them, I think. So, another good one. So keep your eyes out for the next one. Not sure when it's going to be yet, but it will be. There will be one at some point. And yeah, that was kind of Sunday, and then again just an afternoon, which was quite nice. I think just enough, really, for people.
Yeah, we've hate to blow our own trumpet, but we've nipped the kind of like the seminar concept. I think now got it down to a fine art. Well, for what you want to offer to your community anyway. I think we've really kind of like dialed in on what works, what doesn't work.
Yeah,
kind of like content wise, timing wise.
The other thing as well, I think we've had 3 now that have really kind of covered similar thing, like subject matter wise. We've covered really mindset, rehab, all the stuff, but actually every one of them has covered it in a different way, which is quite good.
Yeah, definitely.
So if you can, so I think some people have come to all 3, and probably will hopefully have taken something mega different from each one.
Yeah, it just builds. So it's all kind of like it's all building towards the same kind of thing, but it's just different angles of perspective, isn't it? That kind of
layer into each other.
Yeah, layers into each other and builds a kind of like more well-rounded, comprehensive understanding of.
Yeah, we had a really engaged group as well, which I thought was good. Everyone was kind of asking questions and doing, and really interested, which was always nice. Sometimes when you have like a Q&A at the end, and it's like just like tumbleweed. Yeah. It's not ideal. So no, it was good. I enjoyed it. But yeah, I guess prior to that, you had
the worst. Well, let's call it what it is. The worst travel experience of my life.
So I'm gonna let Ed detail this out because yeah.
So I want to preface this by describing the 2 other most horrific travel experiences of my life, just to kind of
give context.
So the third worst was a journey that has been well documented on this podcast already, which is, I believe, was it the Munich to Prague train journey that we went on during our interrailing trip that landed us stranded in the middle of Bavaria.
Yeah, I mean, that did end pretty well.
It did, yeah. Granted, it did end quite well, but immediately in the moment, that was easily up there with the most jarring travel experience.
I'd probably say from Budapest to Vienna. That was
bad. That was Billy the Biscuit, wasn't it?
Yeah.
R.I.P. forever in our hearts.
Yeah, but that was Biscuit, and it was really it was the same thing where it was like delayed trains, cancelled trains. We were all fucking sardined onto one.
Yes, there was like three trains worth of people on one train. We were in the footwell of one of the carriages. No air conditioning in like 35-degree heat. Yes. That was stinking.
And we saw that fucking Hong Kong heat wave as well.
What? Oh shit! Yeah, Hong Kong heat wave, where we just basically happened to be kind of people watching, and we this one individual caught our eye as they were leaving the platform, probably because they were in full black denim, and they just literally, as we kind of were watching them, just fucking creamed in on the floor.
Yeah.
Which again, not really what you want when you're
about to cream
in as well.
Yeah, so that wasn't great. Anyway. Next.
Yeah, so then the second one is Boomtown 2017. It's throwing it back shit. Now. So no, I think this was the second year when you joined us.
I see.
So the first year was all right because we had to queue for a bit, but we got in.
Yeah.
Eventually, the second year, I got the coach again. All the other lads drove. And you joined us the day after because you couldn't get it off work.
Yeah.
So there's 3 different things happening here, but let's dial in on me. So I got the coach with loads of people that I knew from college, which at the time seemed like a great idea. But then I basically exposed myself to like the mass stampede that was like the eager beavers who wanted to get there as soon as the gates open.
In other words, the druggies.
The druggies, yeah. Because like all my mates who drove, and obviously. Druggies well known for being unemployed, obviously can't afford a car, so they're not with all the people that have driven, they're with all the coach people. And it was the first year they'd done like digital tickets, and effectively their scanners didn't work. So, to cut a long story short, it involved me stood in a field, in the baking heat, carrying all of my kind of worldly possessions for the weekend, not moving anywhere, surrounded by hippie druggies.
Not ideal, really.
No, and that was actually, looking back, traumatising. Like, if that was me now, I would have just gone home. Like, genuinely, I wouldn't have the patience for that now, knowing that I had like a weekend of basically kind of like living like a hobo in a field.
Yeah.
I would have just called it quits, because we genuinely were stood waiting for them to sort their fucking shit admin out for about 5 hours
That is...
in the bake. And obviously, because you just assume that you can go straight into the festival, no one brings provisions for standing in a baking field for 5 hours.
And it's fucking roasting as well, I remember.
Yeah, and
weekend.
because you all kind of like en masse initially go to the turnstiles to get in, no one kind of sets their stall out as if they're going to be stood around for 5 hours. Yeah. So you're all just kind of like...
Pod people.
It was fucking shit.
That sounds horrendous.
And that's only the second worst travel experience I've ever had.
Yeah, so I mean, I was getting like updates about this for across the week, and it wasn't pretty.
So, my missus took me away as kind of like a surprise birthday trip to Bucharest, and that's a lovely thought.
Face of it, lovely gesture.
Face of it, lovely gesture, and we, can't take anything away from the fact that that was a lovely thought, and she couldn't have done anything about what you're about.
What actually happened?
Well, what unfolded? Yeah, it was completely out of
it.
It's completely out of our hands. So the journey over there was initially tarred by Birmingham Airport shit admin, because they're currently in the process of changing their security system.
Yeah, we had a bit of that. We were going to Lanzarote, didn't we?
So the whole place is just a building site. I mean, the airport itself is shit enough ordinarily, but at the moment it's like hell on earth. So it took us 90 minutes to get from arriving at the airport through security.
Yeah, so much so that actually for my next trip I will be categorically avoiding Birmingham Airport.
That's good. Again, that's good PR for Birmingham Airport. Yeah. They've done a solid there. Knowing that they were going to be changing the security system, they've nailed that.
I will travel across the country to not go there.
Yeah. Anyway, my missus was complaining about feeling a bit nauseous before we got on the flight, but again, in that very typical understated way that women do with their health, kind of completely downplayed it.
Yeah.
To the extent that we've got on the flight, we're taking off. I've reverted to usual airplane procedure, and I've put my earplugs in and my sleep mask on, and I've tried to get some kip. Right. I've immediately had a tap on my leg about 2 minutes into the takeoff procedure, and I take my sleep mask off. Right. I say, this is good. This. And I look over, and my missus is next to me, and she's got a handful of her own sick, no less. So that's good. She's thrown up during takeoff.
On the climb.
She can't move. Right. We're kind of sandwiched in by someone on the aisle seat, which again is good. So even if you did want to move, you've got to navigate a stranger with a lap full of sick.
I will say at this point, just hearing about this makes me feel tremendously uneasy.
Yeah.
So I can't really imagine.
Well, neither of us deal well with sick.
No.
Do we?
Not at all.
And to make matters worse, I don't want to get too visceral, but prior to takeoff, she had eaten a ham and cheese baguette which did have horseradish in it. And
it's not a pleasant sight.
And I'm gonna be honest, that was the overriding smell that was now kind of like percolating around the confined space.
Around the cabin.
Of the cabin, yeah. So that's good for me,
set the scene,
herself, and the individuals in the immediate vicinity. So that was traumatic. So basically that day was written off. So we were there for 3 days, 2 of which were kind of like travel days, and then not 1 full day. It was only a short city break. The middle day was great, really, no complaints. We had a bit of hassle with the high carb. Other than that, very kind of like stereotypical kind of touristy vibes. That was good. Third day turns out it was my turn to basically cream in.
Yeah.
So I'd obviously eaten something dodgy, or like I'd overdone it in the heat, because it was like 35 degrees and I didn't eat or drink enough, and continued to train.
Yeah, good.
So I'm not sure whether it was like a very, very mild form of like heat exhaustion, or I had just eaten something a bit dodgy.
Like 30,000 steps, didn't you?
Yeah, but I don't know whether it was like actually like a virus that I'd caught off my missus. But regardless, right, I just felt pure lightheaded and nauseous. So we went to a CrossFit gym in the morning, and that obviously then sent me even further west. But there was no... So like normally if you get food poisoning, you've got the shits, haven't you? Yeah. There was nothing below the head going on. It was all dizziness, nauseousness.
That's weird.
So weird. So
does sound heat related.
Yeah, I was thinking that. But anyway, to cut a long story short, all morning and all early afternoon, I couldn't keep anything down. And we'd obviously checked out of our Airbnb because our flight was at 9 p.m. on the evening. So I'm kind of homeless.
You're in the nether zone.
Rudderless, in the nether zone, in 35-degree heat.
Horrendous.
Unable to keep any solids or fluids down. So to be fair to my missus, being the gem that she is, booked like a last-minute Airbnb just for the day. Next to the airport. So we basically had some digs where I could just rap in peace. Which is great. So we're in this really random kind of like, I don't know what you'd call it. It was like an East European, I think dacha is the word that they use in Russian.
Really?
Like holiday chalet.
Okay.
A bit like a ski chalet vibe. It's all made of like wood. It's like 4 stories. It's nice.
Yeah.
We're on the top floor. It has air conditioning. It's very kind of like chilled. It's perfect, right? Oh, this is great. I can nap for a few hours. Fast forward, that didn't happen, obviously, because I feel terrible. My missus has gone to get provisions, so like water, gone to a pharmacist to try and get some drugs, basically, for me on the flight. At this time, I've kind of come back to consciousness from my nap.
Resurfaced.
And just immediately felt the need to projectile vomit. And obviously, because like you said, that's a very time-precious situation, that, isn't it? You don't really have control over
the inputs and
the
outputs.
inputs and outputs of your body at that particular time. So, in fairness, I have made it to the toilet. But then, unfortunately, I didn't quite make it all the way to the toilet.
Yeah.
So I've then thrown up in the sink, which was kind of like presented with. So the toilet's too far away. I've got the bath over to one side, which is kind of like, would require like a dolphin dive, kind of like mid spew, which again is then off the cards. So I've gone to the sink, right, and what I've done there is I've massively overestimated the competency of Romanian plumbers there.
Yeah.
Because as it transpires, they become blocked quite easily, Romanian sinks.
That's gopping.
So there's now, I've just, there's like a litre of my spew in a sink that isn't draining fundamentally.
Yeah. And you're now aware you can't leave it like that.
Yeah, and I obviously don't, my missus has got us an Airbnb, so I don't want her to get seen off by like hidden cleaning fees and stuff. So again, while she's still out, I've had to conduct some kind of ad hoc plumbing, which involves, again, I'm not a plumber, I've never done this before in my life, but I assume...
Sink autopsy.
Sink autopsy again, but thought architecture, right? So the issue is clearly in like the little U-bend bit. So I'm going to have to unscrew that, clean whatever's like blocking it, and then kind of like wash away whatever remaining sick is still in like the basin. Yeah. So I've unblocked it, right? And there was a bin in the toilet, so I've immediately decanted it into the bin, which was good because that caught most of the fluid. But then I'm presented with what was blocking the U-bend, and I can only describe it as like a congealed blob of what I imagine is like years worth of like matted Romanian hair and gunk.
That stinks.
Yeah. It's good because I had to pull that out the U-bend to unblock it. Yeah, with my bare hands, covered in my own sick. So that's a low point.
It's a high point of your career.
Bearing in mind, this is a birthday trip, and the previous day was my birthday. So I'm really I'm celebrating in style here. That's what we've got to remember.
What an entrance into the year 26.
Yeah, and the great thing is, I know I've been going on for so long, and you're like, well, surely that's the end of it. Well, you're wrong, and it does get worse. So we then, after you're sick, you immediately feel better, don't you? So like for the next few hours, I'm actually pretty perky. But my mistake in hindsight now was that I kind of onboarded a lot of Gatorade in that time in an attempt to rehydrate myself.
Yeah.
And what happened then is when we were then made to get onto the bus transfer from the terminal to the plane at the airport, a combination of claustrophobia, motion sickness, and heat, I think kind of all came together in kind of like a vicious circle, like a vicious holy trinity, all conspired against me and resulted in me, to put it bluntly, projectile vomiting all over people's bags and possessions.
That is fucking horrendous.
That's good. Do you know when you're going to be sick, but it's not quite come yet, but like it's happening, like it's like it's coming front and centre down the highway.
Up.
It is coming. So I just turned to my missus. Obviously, she can't do anything, but I felt the need to vocalise this just to make myself feel better. And I just went, I'm going to be sick.
Oh,
and then there was about a 5-second pregnant...
Will Mackenzie moment.
There was a pregnant pause, and then I just... In that time, like, I kind of... In, like, the Terminator, you know, when he's, like, assessing a target, I'd, like, kind of honed in on this kind of, like, space where there weren't any humans, but there were bags. It was like...
You didn't tell me they did it on the bags.
On the bags, yeah. But the great thing is...
Yours?
No, because we were wearing our bags, so it's even better. So I've spewed on a stranger's worldly possessions.
That is, I mean, you know when you're flying back from a holiday, I mean, minus all of this stuff, and you're a bit threaders because you're flying back from holiday, and you're roasting, your flight's been delayed, and all the rest of it. And then to compound that issue,
a stranger's thrown up on your bag.
Yeah, you now have to throw up all over your back.
Well, Gatorade spew to be precise.
Oh, lad.
It was blue as well. People probably thought I was like fucking radioactive.
Yeah.
This bloke's just projectile vomited blue fucking...
Uranium on
Uranium all over. I suppose it didn't melt.
Yeah, they're probably throwing those bags clean away now.
But there was a really awkward kind of like 5-minute period where like... So I spewed pretty much towards the end of the bus journey to the plane. But because they weren't quite ready to let us onto the plane yet because the flight was delayed for whatever reason... There was a really awkward 5 minutes where I'm still trapped on the bus, surrounded by my watery spew, with all the people and their bags that I've just spewed on.
That's horrendous. Yeah.
So it was very much like Will Mackenzie in the second In-Betweeners film.
Yeah.
You know, where he's thrown up in that water park because a fucking jobbies hit him in the face.
It's very much the same thing, yeah.
I was like, I think there was a mix of people that... The people at the other end of the bus felt sorry for me because obviously I hadn't spewed on their things.
The people, yeah.
But then in the
hatred
ultimately in the immediate vicinity, I think most of the people were threaders with me.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if you were in that situation and your bags had been, you know, I mean, not that you could help it, but you wouldn't be happy.
To be honest, after that, like I got the message that I should probably stop kind of like trying to take on any fluids or solids, so I did perk up a bit after that.
Okay.
But the only thing after that is worth note, other than the fact that I still felt pretty horrendous, is that I obviously notified the Ryanair staff that I'd just been sick and that I felt ill. And they could not have done less to fucking help me out. It was like, when I presented that information to them, they just immediately saw me as a fucking pain in the arse, as opposed to a paying customer who may need some customer service.
We've spoken about it before, like the disrespect the airlines have for their actual... customers.
Yeah,
but they just don't do anything for you, and like they're very minimal, especially budget airlines, very minimal in terms of accommodating your needs.
Yeah, I had to ask 4 times for a sick bag before we took off, and then mid-flight, the air stewardess came over to me, and to be fair to her, she asked, "Oh, do you want a bottle of water?" I was like, "Oh, she's changed the tune. This is great. Yes, please. I would like a bottle of water." Went back to sleep. I'm kind of. She taps on my leg. Yeah, I take my sleep mask off, and she presents a card machine to me.
That's wild, isn't it? Again, like budget airlines, isn't it? It's fucking mental.
Again, like she tried to hoodwink me as well. She's like, she wasn't like, "Oh, I'm bringing the trolley round. You want a bottle of water and you can pay for it."
She's like selling it.
She was like, out the goodness of her own heart, she presented like
this opportunity to hydrate.
Yeah,
and actually it was behind a paywall.
I don't know. I just looked at her confused and fuming, and then eventually she gave it me for free. So
did she?
Who's the real winner there?
Yeah,
me.
Oh, I don't know.
Covered in my own sick, but with a free bottle of water.
I don't. Yeah, I mean, take the wins where you can get them, mate. Yeah, I mean,
but yeah, I mean that was a bit kind of like long-winded, and it went on a bit. But I think to do it justice, I did have to kind of like describe it in that much detail.
There wasn't much that you skimmed up. You skimmed over it, really. There wasn't much that you went into super loads of detail with.
It wasn't, that was the non-granular detail version.
That was... I mean, I've never had a travel experience quite that harrowing.
Like, honestly, that really put me off air travel.
I bet.
I know obviously...
And ham and cheese toasties.
Yeah, and ham and cheese baguettes, which I won't go near for a long time. I know obviously we couldn't do anything about it, but like... I am marginally kind of traumatised. I'm ambiently traumatised by that experience. I don't think now I will go on an airplane until like we have to go away for like high rocks or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
because it's just like my appetite now for travel.
Through the floor.
Unfortunately, has gone through the floor.
Yeah.
Again, for reasons completely out of our control.
That is a traumatising experience for sure.
I mean, you can look back and laugh, but at the time, I just wanted to fucking hurl myself into the jet engine. So, make of that what you will.
Good birthday treat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway.
That was good. But remember, you got to focus on the positives. That one day that we had in between the trauma was very, very enjoyable. Anyway, that's enough
Right. Yeah.
travel trauma. Let's now unveil the new segments.
Yes, without further ado. So, are we going to do it one by one?
Yes.
Okay.
So these are now kind of like what you've got to think of. Unlike Gareth Southgate, who doesn't use substitutes effectively, we've now got kind of like a team of segments that we can sub in and out whenever relevant.
Yeah, exactly. And the reason we've done that again is to keep them fresh.
Yeah.
And entertaining for you.
And we probably will add to them as well in the future. But for now, we cover all bases, I think, for the minute. So the first new segment is Simple Pleasures.
This is my idea of a very nice day out.
Yes. So you will have just heard the new jingle for Simple Pleasures.
Our mate Gary Barlow, who is a massive Tory tax dodger. So
that's where that comes. So Simple Pleasures. You can introduce this one because it's yours.
It does what it says on the tin, pretty much. I mean, like these are the things in life that don't necessarily cost much and potentially go unappreciated, but when they happen, they just bring you kind of like a good amount of joy.
Yeah. So if you have got any of these, feel free to message the Brummy Brothers Instagram.
Yeah,
with them.
That's a good point, actually. We would like these to be more of like a communal thing. So, either message us on Instagram or email us if it's kind of like a proper anecdote that you want us to dive into. Because we're fed up of just kind of like feeding you our opinions. We'd actually like to share listeners' opinions and make it a bit more kind of communal.
Exactly. So if you've got any simple pleasures, then fire them in.
But we'll
start off.
Start as you mean to go on. My simple pleasure, and I feel like it's appropriate that it goes in first, is gobshite kids who immediately get instant karma and you're there to witness it.
Yeah, so what you mean by that is when a kid is just being a nightmare and maybe like falls over or runs into something or something like that.
Yeah.
So when you sat at like a restaurant or something and they're like screaming and shouting and hollering and the parents doing nothing about it and they, running about causing mischief and then they'll automatically run into a table leg.
Or they'll trip over and fucking do a Billy the Biscuit, basically.
Yeah.
And this is twofold, really, because obviously it gives the kid a valuable life lesson. And that's how ultimately kids learn, isn't it? It's like you're a gobshite and then pain is inflicted upon you by some kind of divine cosmic justice. And then you learn to be less of a gobshite.
Yeah.
But then it's twofold, because like you were saying, this normally comes from shit parenting. So the whole reason they're a gobshite in the first place is because the parents have rapped on them.
Yeah.
But now the fact that the kid's injured, they actually have to take action.
Well, exactly. So it forces the parents into action.
So it's twofold. And then there's obviously the Schadenfreude of kind of they were pissing you off and now ill has come of them. So now you can get some joy from their pain.
Yeah, the only thing I will say is that if it's a noise-related issue, this tends to not quell the issue. Because if they are screaming, shouting, then when they hit themselves on something, they're now screaming and shouting louder.
Yeah, ultimately, that is a bit of a flaw to my kind of thought architecture. But the only defence I have for that is that, as I said, they're now tears of pain as opposed to joy. So I can at least take something from that.
You can take something from that. Yeah.
No, again, not to wish ill on infants and small children, which at face value I appreciate could come across as quite evil.
Yeah.
But what you've got to remember is if you're next to these people in a restaurant,
your sympathy for them will quickly
it soon dissipates.
drop.
Yeah. And we've all been there. Don't take the moral high ground. But what an evil person! How could you wish that on a small child?
Next time you're in that situation, you'll think of this.
Yeah, exactly. And they were right.
Yeah. Anyway, simple pleasures again. They're going to come thick and fast now. We're probably going to have a few weeks of them, I think, because we've had loads of the other segments. Haven't we? So we'll do a few weeks of them. So if you have got any, send them in. If not, we'll come up with that.
To be fair, listeners now, are getting a lot more involved. Like I regularly kind of like every week will get someone sending in, like messaging me, giving me an idea for kind of helmet of the week or something, which is good. We want that.
Exactly.
Keep them coming. It's good.
Yeah.
Because we want to get to a point really when the segments are entirely just driven by you.
Yeah,
And
because more entertaining probably, because then they're not going to be repetitive, hopefully, and they're going to be kind of...
Yeah, exactly. It's just kind of like more ideas brought to the table because you know how we think. Because this entire podcast is just built on our thoughts and ideas.
Yeah.
So they're a bit predictable.
Yeah.
We want kind of other people's perspectives to then unpack.
Exactly. Okay, next segment, the new edition. This is in place of Reasons to be Cheerful. It's kind of the opposite end of the spectrum.
Yeah, says a lot about where my mindset's going.
Yeah. So this one's pet peeves.
Brother, what's that? What's that, brother?
Everyone who's British, at least, should be familiar with the kind of colloquialism pet peeves.
Idiom.
Yeah, and again, if you watched our Room 101 episode, you know what a pet peeve is. This is just something that kind of like irritates you and kind of like gets on your wick, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, and so these two are both football related, as the Euros is raging on.
Yeah, so actually we've come full circle. It's quite nice because we started with the Euros and we're going to end with the Euros.
Exactly, yeah, I like it.
And this pet peeve of mine has become pronounced at the Euros, especially because of the Gareth Southgate situation. This is TV pundits who feel compelled to preface any objective analysis or criticism they have of a manager or a player because basically they're friends with them.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, it should be objective, shouldn't it?
Yeah, you're paid to provide your objective analysis of said performance, team.
And they'll always go, especially with the Gareth Southgate thing, they'll go, oh, he's a lovely bloke, but, you know, he's a really nice chap, but that's not we're not asking to be a nice chap.
Yeah, that's twofold, isn't it? Firstly, whether he's a nice chap has fuck all to do with your analysis of the performance that he's just put his team through.
Yeah.
Secondly,
that's not his job.
He's not been paid £5 million a year by the FA to be a nice bloke.
Yeah.
He's been paid £5 million a year by the FA to win fucking major international tournaments.
Yeah.
So your analysis of him should be based on that, not whether he buys fucking random kids' ice creams at the park.
Which would be a bit weird.
It would be a bit weird.
Yeah, I mean, this is annoying. And like I said, the good pundits don't really do it as much. But it is more pronounced now the Euros are on because he's always shit, basically. So they've got something bad to say about him all the time. And he's classically kind of a nice guy, isn't he?
Yeah. And
that's why his reputation's sort of built upon.
And it's always like the English pundits, you know, in particular... With the Gareth Southgate example, obviously it's the English pundits that fall foul of this more often than not because they're the people that will likely be friends with Gareth or kind of
hold him in high esteem.
Hold him in high esteem. So they're always worse for this. It's refreshing when you get kind of neutral pundits, potentially kind of like from other nations, who have no skin in the game.
Who just call it for what it is.
Who just call it for what it is because the contrast between their analysis and kind of like the analysis of like Gary Lineker or Alan Shearer or Ian Wright particularly tends to try and be very positive, but with that then
caveat,
he can sometimes miss like the obvious criticism which does need to be addressed.
Yeah, I thought Alan Shearer was pretty good. He was pretty neutral the other day.
To be honest, I think they are at the end of their tether with him because they now realise that them being nice to him for so many years probably hasn't done him any good because now when it's crunch time and we're at a tournament where we are expected to win. And it's not the last chance saloon, but, you know, if not now, then when?
Yeah, it's a bit weird. I wonder.
There was a very, very clear change in tone, I thought, between the first game and the second game with a lot of the pundits.
Oh, yeah.
Wasn't there?
Because it's normal for a game at the start of the tournament to start really slow, trying to get momentum. But actually, like you said at the start, you go through the gears or you gain momentum or you learn from the first fucking thing that something hasn't gone well and then you don't just try and repeat it. He basically saw a shit performance in the first game and then just put exactly the same team out.
And then he thought, I'll double down on this.
Yeah, that was good. But we only won by like a fucking random header. Yeah, sick.
Yeah, we scraped a win
against
with a lucky deflected cross and a bit of kind of like
individual brilliance.
Yeah, speculative play.
Yeah.
And then
We'll go again with that.
we'll go again with that.
And guess what happened? We snagged a goal by some mistake again. But we're actually against a better team, so we drew.
Yeah, so that is a massive pet peeve of mine because I don't want to hear people talk about how much. I mean, I do like the new podcast which has emerged in the past season, the Overlap.
Yeah, it's good.
Stick to Football, it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
On the Overlap, which is the channel, and it's like basically all the ex kind of like United, Fergie era players, and then Carragher and Ian Wright and Jill Scott talking football. That can get a bit like that sometimes because like all the guests they have tend to be ex-United players.
Yeah,
it's a bit of a boys' club, isn't it?
A bit of a microcosm, isn't it?
And as soon as they talk about anything kind of critically, they always have to caveat it with like, "Oh, I'm sure he's a good lad."
Yeah.
I don't give a shit if he's a good
It's
lad.
like the Henderson effect.
Mate, I was just about to say there was a great example of when they were talking about Henderson's form leading into the Euros and whether he
Last time.
he should or should not have been picked, and they were all.
He's good for the dressing room, though, isn't he?
Oh, he's great for the. And Jamie Carragher, obviously, with his Liverpool bias, was
Yeah.
like, he's a good lad. I don't care if he's
Roy Keane was like, that's fucking neither here nor there.
Yeah.
He's a shit fucking midfielder. So.
Which is why I find Roy Keane so refreshing. Because it's like, I don't care if they're the fucking best pint in the world.
Yeah.
If they're not fucking doing their job on the pitch, call them out for it, because that's what
That's
you've
the
been
job.
paid to do.
I always wonder whether by they I mean kind of Gareth Southgate, takes any interest in the pundits' view. Do you know what I mean? So this last week now, or kind of weekend, is he watching fucking BBC Sport and seeing Lineker going, actually that was fucking shit, wasn't it? Why didn't you do this rather than this? And then is he going, well, maybe, or is he just complete recluse now? Because for his mental health, that's probably not good. I mean, for his state of mind, he probably shouldn't be watching the media or TikTok or anything like that.
Especially when he watches this episode.
Yeah.
He's going to be fucking quaking in his boots.
Yeah, exactly. 2 fucking sprogs from Dudley. But no, I wonder whether he takes any of that on board or whether he just goes full fucking shutout.
I don't know, it's interesting. I think it's a very dangerous territory if you are a pundit to get too close with players and managers who are still in the game. Because there's a conflict of interest there.
Yeah.
Because if it is going to kind of influence your objective analysis, then you shouldn't be doing it, really.
No, if you can remain objective, it's obviously right. But how do you know you can do that? I don't know. I just think it's interesting whether any of his kind of decision making in the next few days is actually his own thing, or is influenced by the media and all that.
I think his initial kind of decision making definitely was because he listened to the media and tried to get all of our best players into one team. So I actually think I can't believe I'm saying this, he needs to just go back to his own original thinking.
I know, and I'm interested to see if because everyone seems to say the dropping off thing is a tactical thing, but they've all said it's not, and it makes no sense for it to be, because obviously we've seen how shit it is, or whether it's just a function of the game's taken that route.
But they've done something, whether it's a tactical decision or a subconscious psychological decision. They've done something to encourage the other team to come on to them, because that's not naturally how they play for their clubs.
No,
so
also,
something has influenced that.
Normally,
and even if Gareth hasn't been the one to instigate it, he needs to acknowledge it and rectify it.
The most worrying thing last game wasn't even that for me. It was the cheap possession giving away was fucking mental, mate.
Bad.
For those players, it's like that should not be a thing. Like even players like Bellingham and Rice, it was just normally they're unbelievable. They're all over it.
Yeah, the ball's normally glued to their feet, isn't it?
Yeah.
And they couldn't keep handle of the ball.
I know. Well, passing it as well. I mean, Foden was similar as well in the first game. Didn't make many good passes, and he's like, what the fuck? Like, Foden's ridiculous at that. Normally, you can pick anyone out. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see on Tuesday. What's it? Time's the game?
8 o'clock on Tuesday, I believe. Crunch time.
Fucking bombers.
See, the thing is, like, if it actually fucking pulled our finger out against Denmark, we would have already gotten through to the fucking knockout stages.
Could have played the kids.
So then we actually could have experimented.
Yeah, innit? Like, surely the experimentation thing comes after you've got money in the bank.
So you play a proper midfield, a nailed-on kind of midfield trio in the first 2 games, secure the win, And
then
then you
experiment afterwards.
do the Trent experiment against Slovenia, knowing that they're probably the poorest opposition you're going to play in the tournament. So there's nothing riding on the result. That's when you fucking experiment, Gareth.
Yeah, that's mental. It's almost that's like
He's been paid £5 million a year to think about this,
for a year, well, for 2 years.
and he's having it pointed out to him by two sprogs from Dudley, like you say,
Yeah, well, and everyone else.
and everyone else with working vision.
Crazy, mate. Again, just to reiterate, to finish off, if he plays that same team, that's absolute. I don't think he can. There's no way he can start Trent again. Yeah, he's too diplomatic fundamentally. Like when he gets asked a question, he's too worried about saying the right thing rather than saying what he thinks. He asked, is that experiment done now? He's like, oh, well, we're kind of happy with some of the things he's done and this and that.
Yeah.
It's like, well, no, shit.
And I do get I think part of the reason he's been so successful with England is also part of his downfall in the sense that he's brought them together and created a kind of family unit, which can actually be detrimental because then you're kind of scared to upset certain personalities within the dressing room.
Yeah, whereas as a manager, you need to have that both levels. Like Alex Ferguson was.
Yeah, it was if you're not pulling your weight, you'll get called out,
and you get dropped.
And if you continue to not pull your weight, you'll get fucked off.
Well, exactly. That's the key, really, is that knowing there's repercussions for if you are shit. Because if you just know you're just going to be in the team anyway, then there's no real incentive to dig out.
No, and that's the thing though, isn't it? It's that was needed. That kind of we did need cohesion building. But then it's has he taken that as far as he can? And then did you need a bit more of a disciplinarian to come in and then enforce some
maybe, I don't know. I think
clear rules on top of that kind of
I think fundamentally the players like to play for him, and I think that's really important. I think if he can get the system right, then we're fine. Because I think the players do like to perform for him, and that they love that sort of when it goes well, it's really good. But
they Gareth needs to be a bit more assertive in how he wants them to perform.
But anyway, we'll see.
All will be revealed. If you're listening to this when it comes out, then you just had
you have 12 hours.
You've had an hour's kind of really deep, thoughtful insight analysis from experts there to kind of wet your whistle for the game tomorrow,
which is in 12 hours. That'd be great.
For you to ultimately be disappointed.
No, surely not. I can't wait. The Euros is so mad when England go far though, because you basically have the game, and then the time between the games. He's
analysis and speculation,
and then you're just waiting for that. It's mental, isn't it? It
class,
just becomes so bought in instantly.
Another simple pleasure though is just international tournaments. If you're into football, there is no greater feeling than waking up knowing that. From 2 o'clock onwards, you can just park yourself in front of the TV and watch good quality football.
Yeah, so
and even the games at face value that are shit. If you're a football fan, nothing brings me joy like watching an absolute corker of an end-to-end game between fucking Georgia and Romania.
Yeah, because no one can play. But
it's just
end-to-end.
It's fucking mental, and that's where the next generation of stars come announce themselves on the world stage, isn't it?
Yeah, it's mega. And
and it's not behind a fucking paywall, most importantly.
I'm about to say, it's on fucking BBC as well most of the time, where it's no adverts. It's sensational to watch. Because you get just good punditry and then no fucking ads. Sick.
Yes. So, that kind of rounds it up. It's been a very Euros/football centric
It was always going to be
episode, but we did want to make it topical because we do have a lot of listeners who are into that. So if you're not into that, apologies.
Get into it.
But either get into it or next week you have a Q&A episode to look forward to.
Look forward, we have a Q&A episode, which weirdly we've just recorded.
Yeah, and there's no football chat in that, so you're safe.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. So we'll probably be out by then. So that's us. Like I say, next week we've already done. So any kind of suggestions or requests for the week after, bang them in the comments.
Fire them in. Get involved.
Like, comment, subscribe, all that good shit. And we'll see you next time.